The stars shimmered against the blackness of space as Lisa Daniels stared at her monitor screen. For 3 nights in a row, she had detected unusual signals coming from just beyond Neptune's orbit. At first she thought it was equipment failure. Then she considered it might be interference from a solar flare. But now, on the 4th night, she was certain. Something was out there. Something that wasn't human. Control, this is Science Officer Daniels on International Space Station Alpha. I need to speak with Admiral Carter immediately, she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. 20 minutes later, Admiral Alan Carter stood in the command center of Earth Defense Force headquarters. At 62, his hair had gone completely gray, but his posture remained as straight as during his first day of service 40 years ago. The large screen before him displayed the signal patterns Lisa had sent. How certain are we that this is artificial? He asked the room of analysts and scientists. Dr. Elaine Murphy stepped forward. As Earth's leading xenolinguist, she had spent her career preparing for this moment. The pattern repeats with mathematical precision, sir. Natural phenomena don't communicate in prime number sequences. Someone is reaching out. Admiral Carter nodded. And they're getting closer. The Solar Alliance emergency meeting was called. Within hours. Representatives from all Earth nations gathered virtually as Admiral Carter explained the situation. For decades, humanity had sent signals into space, hoping for a response. Now that response had arrived, and it was approaching. Rapidly. The object will enter Earth orbit in approximately 27 hours, Captain Jack Simmons reported from the bridge of the EDF Valiant, Earth's flagship vessel now positioned near the Moon as a first line of defense. Its speed suggests technology, far beyond our own. Dr. Murphy's team worked without rest, attempting to decode more of the incoming transmissions. By the time the alien ship appeared, they had managed to establish a basic translation matrix. The vessel that entered Earth's orbit dwarfed anything humans had built. The sleek, dark shape stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, with strange, blue lights pulsing along its hull. It took position above the Atlantic Ocean and simply waited. They're sending a new transmission, Maria Gonzalez announced from her communications station. It's directed specifically at our governmental frequencies. The message appeared on screens worldwide. The translation was rough but clear enough. Attention Primitive World Designation E3742. This vessel represents the authority of the Galactic Draconis Empire, sovereign of 322 star systems. Your world has been charted. For integration, prepare to receive our diplomatic envoy at these coordinates. The coordinates pointed to the United Nations Plaza in New York. 6 hours later, Admiral Carter stood alongside the Solar Alliance president and 30 world leaders. As a small shuttle descended from the sky, the craft landed with barely a sound, its surface shimmering like oil on water. A hatch opened and 3 figures emerged. They were humanoid, but clearly not human. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, their skin had a bluish-purple tint that seemed to shift in the sunlight. Their eyes were large with vertical pupils like a cat's. They wore fitted bodysuits that appeared to be part of their bodies rather than separate clothing. The being in front stepped forward. I am Ambassador Zorthul of the Draconis Empire. Your world has been selected for the honor of Imperial membership. The words came through a device at its throat, translated into flat, emotionless English. President Allison Grant stepped forward. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you to Earth. We look forward to peaceful dialogue between our peoples. The ambassador's expression didn't change, but something like amusement flickered in those vertical pupils. Dialogue is unnecessary. The Empire has expanded for 12,000 years using standardized protocols. Your technology level places you in Category 4. You will receive protectorate status with limited self-governance under Imperial oversight. Admiral Carter stepped forward. And if we wish to remain independent? For the first time, the ambassador seemed to truly look at the humans before him. Independence is not an option. You will join the Empire as a protectorate within 30 standard days, or we will be forced to implement regulatory action. Regulatory action? Dr. Murphy asked, unable to contain herself. The process would be unpleasant for your species, the ambassador said simply. We will return in 30 days for your formal submission. In the meantime, assessment teams will evaluate your world's resources and inhabitants. Do not interfere with their work. Before anyone could respond, the three aliens returned to their shuttle and departed. In the emergency meeting that followed, voices rose in anger and fear. They're threatening us. General Frank Morrison slammed his fist on the table. We should prepare for war immediately. With what? Admiral Carter asked quietly. Their mothership could probably destroy our entire fleet in minutes. Dr. Murphy shared what little they knew. From the transmissions we've intercepted, the Draconis Empire appears to be the dominant power in this sector of the galaxy. They've been expanding for thousands of years, incorporating other worlds into their structure. Do we know what happens to worlds that resist? President Grant asked. Dr. Murphy's face darkened. Not specifically, but there are references to resource extraction and biological harvesting that sound concerning. Captain Simmons joined the meeting via secure link from the Valiant. We've detected multiple smaller craft leaving the mothership. They're spreading out across the globe. Within days, the assessment teams were everywhere. Groups of aliens appeared in major cities, forests, oceans, and deserts. They took samples, scanned buildings, and observed humans with cold detachment. They asked no permission and offered no explanations. Dr. William Green, an anthropologist assigned to observe the aliens, reported troubling findings. They're categorizing everything, plants, animals, minerals, but they seem particularly interested in our water resources and biodiversity. They've spent hours analyzing simple soil samples. In a secure underground facility, Admiral Carter met with Earth's top military and scientific minds. Options? He asked simply. Militarily, we're outmatched, General Morrison admitted. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Diplomatic channels aren't working, Samuel Wright added. They dismiss all attempts at negotiation. They don't even seem to understand the concept of mutual agreement. Dr. Murphy had been unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke. I've been studying their language and behavior patterns. There's something odd about them. They function almost like a collective rather than as individuals, and they seem uncomfortable here. The way they move suggests our gravity and atmosphere aren't ideal for them. So we have 30 days until they expect us to surrender our planet, Admiral Carter summarized. And we have no obvious way to fight or negotiate. Captain Simmons leaned forward. Then we need to find a non-obvious way. As the days passed, the aliens continued their assessment. But now, humans were watching them just as closely. Susan Harris, an intelligence officer, managed to place surveillance on several alien teams. They're communicating constantly with the mothership, she reported, and I've intercepted fragments suggesting they're surprised by something about us, something they call the divergence factor. Admiral Carter looked at Dr. Murphy. What could that mean? She shook her head. I don't know yet, but I intend to find out. As the countdown to humanity's deadline continued, one thing became increasingly clear. The Empire had looked to Earth expecting simple conquest. They would soon discover they had made a terrible miscalculation. The Imperial assessment teams moved through New York City like tourists who found everything beneath them. They scanned buildings, collected samples from parks, and observed humans with cold, vertical pupils. People kept their distance, watching, with a mix of fear and anger. Ambassador Zor Thul stood at the window of his temporary quarters in what had once been the penthouse of a luxury hotel. Two Imperial guards stood silently behind him. These humans progress quickly for primitives, he said, watching the city below. Their technological advancement curve is unusually steep. The door opened and Samuel Wright entered. As Earth's chosen diplomat, he had the unpleasant job of dealing directly with the ambassador. The Solar Alliance president has requested a meeting to discuss terms, Samuel said, keeping his voice steady. The ambassador didn't turn from the window. There are no terms to discuss. You will receive the standard protectorate arrangement for species at your development level. We would like to understand what that arrangement entails. Now the ambassador turned, his face showing what might have been amusement. Your function will be resource provision. Your water reserves and biological diversity are particularly valuable. Selected human specimens will be preserved for study. Samuel felt cold inside but maintained his diplomatic mask. And the rest of humanity? Excess population is inefficient. The Empire optimizes all new territories. After reporting this conversation to Admiral Carter and the Emergency Council, Samuel sat with his head in his hands. They're planning to kill most of us. They're not even trying to hide it. General Morrison pounded the table. We need to strike. Now. Hit them before they're ready. With what? Admiral Carter asked. Their ships have energy shields. Our most powerful weapons would barely scratch them. Dr. Murphy, who had been working day and night on translations and cultural analysis, spoke up. I think I've found something. They keep referring to something called the divergence factor when discussing humans. I believe they're disturbed by our individualism. What do you mean? The president asked. The Draconis Empire appears to operate like a hive with limited individual autonomy. Each member exists primarily to serve the collective. They find our independent thinking and unpredictable behavior unsettling. Dr. William Green nodded eagerly. That matches my observations. They seem confused when humans disagree with each other or show different emotional reactions to the same situation. Admiral Carter leaned forward. Is that something we can use? I don't know yet, Dr. Murphy admitted. But I also discovered they've conquered dozens of species, and none of them had Earth-specific biosphere. This caught Dr. Kyle Richards's attention. The xenobiologist had been studying the alien physiology from a distance. Their environmental suits might not just be for show. I think Earth's conditions are challenging for them. We need more information, Admiral Carter decided. Captain Simmons, prepare a team. It's time we did some assessment of our own. 2 days later, Lieutenant Nicole Taylor floated silently in space near one of the smaller Imperial vessels. Her stealth suit masked her heat signature and reflected her surroundings, making her nearly invisible. 3 other Special Forces operatives moved into position around the ship. Approaching entry point, she whispered into her comm. No signs of external sensors. Captain Simmons watched from the small stealth craft nearby. Remember, this is intelligence gathering only. No engagement. The team attached themselves to the hull and used specially designed tools to create a small entry point. Inside, the ship was dimly lit with the same blue light they had seen on the mothership. The air was thicker than Earth normal, with a strange sweet smell. Atmosphere is breathable, but has a higher carbon dioxide content than Earth standard, Lieutenant Taylor reported. Temperature is approximately 95 degrees Fahrenheit with high humidity. The team moved through narrow corridors, avoiding the few crew members they encountered. The aliens moved differently here than on Earth, more fluid and comfortable in the warmer, thicker air. In what appeared to be a laboratory section, Dr. Kyle Richards, who accompanied the team as scientific advisor, found something interesting. They're running biological tests, he whispered, examining a workstation. Exposing themselves to Earth bacteria and viruses in controlled conditions. Lieutenant Taylor looked over his shoulder. Why would they do that?
Standard protocol for any invasion is to test for biological compatibility, Dr. Richards explained. But look at these results. They're showing extreme sensitivity to several common Earth microbes that are harmless to humans. He quickly copied
the data while Lieutenant Taylor kept watch. In another section, they discovered living quarters where several aliens rested without their environmental suits. Their skin glistened with a thin layer of moisture that seemed to be evaporating too quickly, causing visible discomfort. They're struggling with our atmosphere, Dr. Richards whispered. It's too dry for them. Meanwhile, Maria Gonzalez had managed to tap into the ship's communication system. She intercepted a transmission between the vessel and the mothership. Biological assessment complete. The message read when translated. Subject planet presents significant hazards. Recommend complete surface sterilization before resource extraction. They're planning to sterilize the planet regardless of our answer, Maria reported back to Admiral Carter. The submission deadline is just a formality. As the team prepared to leave with their gathered intelligence, an alarm suddenly blared. They had been discovered. Move to extraction point, Lieutenant Taylor ordered, leading the team back toward their entry point. Alien security forces converged from both directions. Lieutenant Taylor and her team fired non-lethal stun weapons, dropping several aliens, but more kept coming. "You three go, Lodo," Taylor said at a junction. "I'll hold them here." "We don't leave people behind," one of her teammates protested. "This information has to get back to Earth," she insisted. "Go." Dr. Richards and the others reluctantly continued toward the extraction point, while Lieutenant Taylor covered their retreat. They made it back to the stealth craft, just as Lieutenant Taylor's comm went silent. Back on Earth, Dr. Richards presented his findings to the Emergency Council. "The Empire has a critical weakness," he explained. "Their biology makes them extremely vulnerable to certain Earth bacteria and viruses that don't affect humans at all. Simple organisms that have evolved alongside us for millions of years are deadly to them." Dr. Elizabeth Gordon, Earth's leading virologist, studied the data. "Their immune systems have no defense against our microbiome. Even common soil bacteria could cause systemic failure in their bodies." "And there's more," Maria added, displaying the intercepted communications. "They fear something they call the divergence factor in humans." Dr. Murphy was right. "They're disturbed by our individuality and unpredictability." Admiral Carter stood at the window looking up at the alien mothership visible as a dark spot against the moon. "So they plan to sterilize our planet no matter what we do?" "Yes," Dr. Richards confirmed. "But now we know they have a weakness. And we've paid for that knowledge with Lieutenant Taylor's life," Captain Simmons said quietly. Admiral Carter turned back to the room. "Then we make sure her sacrifice matters. We have 18 days until their deadline. It's time to prepare our response." Across the room, faces showed a new emotion that had been missing in the days since the aliens arrived. Hope. Dr. Elizabeth Gordon hadn't slept in 3 days. Her lab in the underground facility beneath Denver was filled with scientists working in sealed containment units. They handled petri dishes containing ordinary Earth bacteria with extraordinary care. How can something so simple be so powerful, she wondered aloud, looking through her microscope at common soil bacteria. Next to her, Dr. Kyle Richards nodded. "These microorganisms evolved alongside humans for millions of years. Our bodies learned to live with them. The aliens have no such protection." In the 16 days since their discovery of the Empire's weakness, Earth had mobilized like never before. While Imperial assessment teams continued their work, humans prepared in secret. Admiral Carter entered the lab, his face showing the strain of the past weeks. "Progress?" he asked simply. Dr. Gordon straightened up. "We've identified 5 bacterial strains that are completely harmless to humans but deadly to the aliens. We're testing delivery methods now." "And how deadly are we talking?" "Complete systemic failure within hours of exposure," Dr. Richards said. "Their biology simply has no defense against our microbes." Admiral Carter nodded grimly. "We're preparing a defensive plan, but I need to know, could this spread beyond our targets? If we use this weapon, could it eventually affect other alien species who might be our allies?" Dr. Gordon shook her head. "The bacteria are specifically dangerous to the Empire's unique biology. Other species would likely have different biological structures. In any case, these are ordinary Earth bacteria, not engineered bioweapons. They exist naturally all over our planet." Ironically, Dr. Richards added, "the very fact that the Empire plans to sterilize Earth shows they already understand this risk. They know our biosphere is deadly to them." Elsewhere in the facility, Henry Ross hunched over his computer. The former hacker had been recruited to find vulnerabilities in the alien technology. After days of monitoring their communications, he had found something. "Their systems use quantum entanglement for instant communication," he explained to Captain Simmons. "But they route everything through central nodes. If we can access just one of those nodes, we could potentially disrupt their entire network." "Can you get in?" Simmons asked. Henry cracked a tired smile. "Already have. They're advanced, but they never expected someone to try hacking them. Their security is designed to prevent internal sabotage, not external intrusion." "What can you do with this access?" "For now, I'm just listening. But when the time comes, I could temporarily disable systems on several of their ships. In New York, Samuel Wright continued his daily meetings with Ambassador Zorthul. Each day he asked for more information, requested clarifications, and found reasons to delay Earth's formal response. My government wishes to understand the exact resource quotas that would be expected from Earth under imperial rule, Samuel said for the third time that week. The ambassador's patience was visibly wearing thin. This has been explained. Resources will be harvested as needed by the Empire. But we need specific numbers to prepare our industries, Samuel insisted. Surely the Empire has standard expectations based on planets of similar size? These delays were buying precious time, but Samuel knew the ambassador was growing suspicious. His suspicions were confirmed when he returned to the facility that evening. They've moved up the deadline, he announced to the Emergency Council. The ambassador says the Empire requires our submission in 5 days, not the original 12 remaining. They know we're stalling, Admiral Carter said. Worse, I think they know we're planning something, General Morrison added. Their assessment teams have been pulling back to their ships. They're preparing for our resistance. Dr. Murphy, who had continued studying Imperial communications, nodded. Their latest transmissions show increasing concern about biological contamination protocols. They're afraid of our bacteria. Then we need to move faster, Admiral Carter decided. General Morrison, deploy our defensive fleet according to Plan Beta. Make it look non-threatening, just routine movements. The general nodded. It's already underway. The fleet is positioning in a defensive formation that should appear to be protecting our major cities, not preparing for offensive action. What about the Mars colony evacuation? President Grant asked. Almost complete, Captain Simmons reported. Key scientific and governmental personnel are safely below the surface of Mars. If Earth falls, humanity will survive. Earth isn't going to fall, Admiral Carter said firmly. Dr. Gordon, is your team ready? She nodded. The delivery system is prepared. We can deploy within 24 hours. And I can disrupt their ship's systems whenever you give the word, Henry added. The room fell silent as they contemplated what they were planning. It wasn't a conventional war they were preparing, for it was something else entirely. Are we crossing a line here? Samuel asked quietly. Using biological agents against them? Dr. Richards shook his head. We're not creating a bioweapon. We're simply exposing them to our natural environment, the same environment they plan to sterilize. The bacteria already exist on Earth. They're part of our world. And more importantly, Admiral Carter added, we may never need to use it. The threat alone might be enough. The next morning, a small Imperial shuttle landed without warning at the Denver facility. Ambassador Zorthul emerged, flanked by guards. Your attempts at deception are transparent, he announced when brought before Admiral Carter and President Grant. We detect unusual movements among your military units. You prepare for resistance. President Grant maintained her composure. We are simply organizing our world to better serve the Empire. These movements are administrative, not military. The ambassador's vertical pupils narrowed. The Empire has changed its assessment. Your species presents an unacceptable contamination risk. The integration deadline is canceled. Sterilization will begin immediately. As the ambassador turned to leave, Admiral Carter spoke. Before you go, we have prepared our official response. To the Empire. The ambassador paused. It is irrelevant now. Nevertheless, I think you'll want to hear it, Admiral Carter said. Dr. Murphy, please ensure the translation is precise. Dr. Murphy stepped forward with a small device. This translation has been carefully calibrated to your language patterns. It contains our single official message to the Draconis Empire. The ambassador hesitated, then took the device. When he activated it, a simple message appeared in his language. The alien's reaction was subtle but unmistakable. His pupils dilated fully, and his skin color shifted to a paler shade. Without another word, he and his guards returned to their shuttle and departed. What did we tell him? President Grant asked. Admiral Carter looked up at the sky where the shuttle was now a distant speck. We sent them a warning, the only warning they'll receive. And now, Dr. Murphy said quietly, we wait to see if they're wise enough to heed it. Outside, dark clouds gathered as a storm approached. The calm before what might be humanity's greatest test was about to end. The Imperial mothership hung in Earth's orbit like a dark promise. Smaller vessels moved in formation around it, their engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. For 3 days after Ambassador Zorthul received Earth's message, there had been no communication from the Empire. Admiral Carter stood in the command center, staring at the large screen showing the alien fleet. Beside him, Captain Simmons studied tactical displays. They've arranged their ships for attack, Simmons noted. Standard formation, designed to maximize weapons coverage. But they haven't attacked, Admiral Carter said. Why? Dr. Murphy entered the room, her face showing the strain of sleepless nights. We've intercepted communications between the mothership and what we believe is Imperial High Command. They're discussing our message extensively. And? President Grant asked, looking up from her console. They're confused, scared even. Dr. Murphy couldn't hide her surprise. Our message has caused significant debate among their leadership. Henry, Ross burst into the room, his laptop under his arm. I've got something. Their ships are running complete biological scans of Earth's atmosphere. They're focusing on bacterial and viral patterns. Admiral Carter nodded. So they understand the threat. Not just that, Henry continued. I've managed to access their central database. They've been analyzing the bacteria samples they collected during their assessment. They know exactly what we could do. Outside the facility, rain fell steadily. The storm that had been building had finally broken, washing Earth's bacteria into streams and rivers, carrying life across the land. Life that had evolved on this planet for billions of years. Life that was deadly to the Empire. In space, Commander Olivia Bennett watched the alien ships from the bridge of her small vessel. She commanded one of 20 ships positioned around Earth in a defensive pattern. Their weapons would be useless against the Imperial fleet, but they served another purpose. Movement on the flagship, her tactical officer reported. They're launching a shuttle. Commander Bennett tapped her console. Admiral, they're sending another shuttle down. Same landing coordinates as before. We're ready, Admiral Carter confirmed. This time when Ambassador Zorthul entered the facility, he wore an enhanced environmental suit. His guards carried weapons openly, their movements tense and alert. Your message has been received by Imperial High Command, the ambassador announced, his voice colder than before. Admiral Carter, flanked by Dr. Murphy and President Grant, nodded. And? The Empire demands clarification. You claim to possess a biological agent capable of spreading throughout our fleet and potentially to our homeworld. You threaten genocide. Not a threat, Admiral Carter corrected. A warning of natural consequence. Your biology cannot survive contact with ours. This is not a weapon we created. It is simply our world. Dr. Murphy stepped forward. Your own tests confirm this reality. Common Earth bacteria, harmless to humans, would be devastating to your people. Your ships, your crews, even your homeworld, would be at risk of contamination. The ambassador's vertical pupils narrowed. The Empire has conquered hundreds of worlds. None have successfully resisted. None were Earth, President Grant said simply. Admiral Carter gestured to a nearby screen. We have already evacuated key personnel to our Mars colony. If you destroy Earth, humanity will survive and spread, and so will our bacteria. Once released into space aboard our ships, there will be no containing it. Henry Ross had been quietly typing at a console in the corner. He nodded to Admiral Carter. To demonstrate our capability, the Admiral continued, we will now temporarily disable the weapon systems on 3 of your scout ships. At that moment, 3 of the smaller Imperial vessels surrounding the mothership suddenly went dark, their engines and systems shutting down simultaneously. The ambassador's reaction was subtle but unmistakable. This is unexpected. We call it hacking, Henry said with a small smile. Your systems are advanced but not secure against human methods. Dr. Gordon entered the room carrying a sealed container. Inside, a simple Petri dish held what looked like ordinary soil. This contains bacteria from an average Earth garden. To your people, it's as deadly as the most advanced bioweapon. It exists in our air, our water, our soil. We do not wish to use it, Admiral Carter continued. We prefer peaceful coexistence, but if forced, we will defend ourselves by any means necessary. The ambassador was silent for a long moment. What do you propose? Mutual respect, President Grant said firmly. Earth remains independent. We establish diplomatic relations as equals, not as conqueror and conquered. The Empire does not recognize equality with lesser species, the ambassador replied, but his tone had changed. Then perhaps it's time for the Empire to evolve, Dr. Murphy suggested. After all, adaptation is the key to survival. The ambassador's gaze moved from one human to another. You are not what we expected. No, Admiral Carter agreed. We are not. Hours later, the ambassador's shuttle returned to the mothership. The Imperial fleet remained in position, but no attack came. They're talking, Dr. Murphy reported, monitoring the communications. The ambassador is reporting directly to Imperial High Command. There's a lot of, I would call it argument, though it's hard to tell with their communication patterns. What are our chances? General Morrison asked bluntly. Admiral Carter looked out the window at the rain-soaked landscape. We've shown them we can't be conquered without unacceptable risk. The question is whether they're rational enough to accept that reality. As night fell, the waiting continued. Commander Bennett reported that the Imperial ships had adjusted their formation, moving slightly farther from Earth. A defensive posture, Captain Simmons noted. They're positioning to protect themselves, not to attack. Henry Ross monitored their communications networks. They've increased their biological containment protocols. Every ship is running continuous internal scans for Earth bacteria. They're afraid, Dr. Richards observed. Perhaps for the first time in their history, they've encountered a world they can't simply take. Near midnight, Maria Gonzalez detected a new transmission. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. It's directed at us. The message appeared on screens throughout the facility. The Draconis Empire acknowledges the unique status of planet designation E3742. Sterilization protocols are temporarily suspended pending further assessment. Ambassador Zor Thul is authorized to establish preliminary diplomatic parameters for special classification status. The room remained quiet as the implications sank in. Did we just win? Samuel Wright asked in disbelief. Admiral Carter shook his head. Not yet, but we've earned the right to negotiate. President Grant allowed herself a small smile. For a species that has conquered hundreds of worlds through force, having to negotiate with us must be quite a shock. Outside, the storm had passed. Rainwater carried Earth's microscopic defenders across the land. Billions upon billions of bacteria continuing their ancient work of breaking down, building up, and sustaining the complex web of life that had emerged on this small blue planet. A web of life now serving as humanity's most powerful shield against the stars. 1 week after the Empire suspended its sterilization plans, a new kind of meeting took place. The Grand Conference Room of the United Nations building had been converted into a diplomatic chamber. On one side sat the human delegation, Admiral Carter, President Grant, Dr. Murphy, and Samuel Wright. On the other side sat Ambassador Zor Thul and 3 Imperial officials who had arrived the previous day. Between them on the table lay a simple document, Earth's proposed treaty with the Draconis Empire. Your terms are unprecedented, Ambassador, Zor Thul said after reviewing the document. No world has ever maintained full independence after contact with the Empire. No world has ever posed the unique challenge that Earth does, Samuel replied smoothly. We're simply acknowledging reality. The lead Imperial official, who had been introduced as Overseer Kelshara, leaned forward. The biological containment requirements alone would make standard integration impossible. Your planet is effectively toxic to our people. Not toxic, Dr. Murphy corrected. Just different. Our biology evolved separately from yours. What's ordinary to us is deadly to you, and possibly vice versa. This creates a natural boundary, Admiral Carter added, one that should be respected, not overcome through force. The negotiations continued for hours. The Empire representatives clearly struggled with the concept of treating Earth as an equal rather than a subject. It went against thousands of years of imperial expansion. Outside, the UN building, life in New York had begun returning to something like normal. People still looked nervously at the sky where the Imperial mothership remained visible during daylight hours, but shops had reopened. Children played in parks again. During a break in the negotiations, Admiral Carter stood at the window watching the city. President Grant joined him. "It's strange," she said quietly. 2 weeks ago we were facing extinction. Now we're discussing trade routes and diplomatic protocols. Admiral Carter nodded. The secret was finding the right leverage, something they couldn't ignore or overcome. You mean the bacteria? More than that. It was showing them we were willing to use it if necessary. That humans would choose mutual destruction over submission. President Grant frowned. Would we have actually done it? Released bacteria that could potentially wipe out their entire species? Admiral Carter looked at her steadily. We hoped it wouldn't come to that. But they needed to believe we would. When negotiations resumed, attention turned to the most sensitive part of the treaty, the status of other worlds under Imperial control. We propose opening diplomatic channels with other species in the Empire, Samuel explained. As part of our agreement, we would like to establish contact with them. Ambassador Zorthul's pupils narrowed. Impossible. Subject worlds communicate through Imperial channels only. That's exactly the point, Dr. Murphy said. Earth will never be a subject world, and we believe other species should have the same opportunity for independence. Overseer Kelshara made a dismissive gesture. Other species lack your unique advantages. They cannot threaten the Empire as you can. Perhaps not individually, Admiral Carter said. But with Earth as an ally, their position might change. The implication hung in the air. Earth was not just seeking its own independence, but potentially offering protection to other worlds under Imperial rule. It was a bold position that clearly made the Empire representatives uncomfortable. After 3 days of intense negotiations, a framework agreement was reached. Earth would remain independent. Limited trade would be established, conducted through specially designed quarantine facilities in Earth orbit. Most importantly, Earth would be permitted to communicate with other species. As Admiral Carter signed the document for Earth, alongside President Grant, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Humanity had faced its greatest test and survived. When the signing was complete, Ambassador Zorthul approached Admiral Carter privately. "There is something I must understand," he said, his voice lower than usual. "The message you sent, the warning that made the Imperial High Command reconsider. What exactly did it say in your language?" Admiral Carter looked into those alien eyes and replied, "We are what your nightmares fear." The ambassador's pupils dilated slightly. A curious phrase. Your Dr. Murphy translated it perfectly into our language, with cultural adjustments to convey the full meaning. It caused great concern among our leadership. It was meant to, Admiral Carter acknowledged. But why those specific words? Because they're true, Admiral Carter explained. To a hive mind species like yours, humans must seem like a nightmare. We're unpredictable, individually motivated, willing to sacrifice ourselves for abstract principles like freedom, and now carrying bacteria that could destroy your entire civilization. The ambassador was silent for a moment. The Empire has existed for 12,000 years because it adapts. Your Earth has forced yet another adaptation. He made a gesture that might have been respect. We will be watching your development closely, as we will be watching yours, Admiral Carter replied. 2 days later, the Imperial mothership and most of its fleet departed Earth orbit. Only a small diplomatic vessel remained, positioned at a safe distance to maintain communications. In Denver, The Emergency Council held its final meeting. The mood was cautiously celebratory. "We should remember Lieutenant Taylor," Captain Simmons said solemnly. "Her sacrifice gave us the information we needed." "And Dr. Gordon's team," Admiral Carter added. "Their work on the bacterial defense gave us our strongest bargaining position." "What happens now?" General Morrison asked. "The Empire is still out there, still powerful." "Now we prepare," President Grant said firmly. "We develop our technology, strengthen our defenses, and build alliances. The Empire has agreed to leave us alone for now, but we can't rely on that lasting forever. We also need to reach out to other species," Dr. Murphy suggested. "There may be allies among the Empire's subjects who would welcome a chance for their own independence." Henry Ross grinned. "And we continue improving our ability to hack their systems. Next time we'll be able to do more than just temporarily disable a few ships." As the meeting concluded, Admiral Carter received a message. The first communication had arrived from a non-Imperial world, a species called the Vextal, who had been under Imperial control for centuries. They had heard about Earth's resistance and wanted to establish contact. "It begins," Admiral Carter said, showing the message to President Grant. The Empire looked to Earth expecting easy conquest. Instead, they found something they'd never encountered before. "What's that?" she asked. "A warning they couldn't ignore," he replied. And now, that warning is spreading throughout the galaxy. Outside, spring was coming to Denver. New plants pushed up through the soil, carrying with them billions of microorganisms, Earth's smallest and most effective defenders. In laboratories, humans studied alien technology, preparing for the future. In schools, children learned about the wider galaxy now open to them. The Empire had looked to Earth and found not just another world to conquer, but a force they could neither control nor destroy. And in that discovery, both humanity and the Empire had been forever changed.